welcome back to the Friday show presented by Pennsylvania Horse Breeders Association. I'm Ray Pollock with Joe Nevels, our bloodstock editor. Pleased to have trainer Keith Desormeaux with us this week. We're going to talk a little bit about the Lecomte Stakes, a race he won last year with Call Me Midnight, I believe, right, Keith?
That's right.
So before we go into that,
remember
Joe,
those
tell us
28-1 shots.
28-1. I didn't have him that day. Before we get into that, Joe, just tell us a little bit about the Pennsylvania Horse Breeders Association Stallion Auction.
Bidding is open now for the Pennsylvania Horse Breeders Association Stallion Auction. Over 90 seasons are available here from Kentucky, Pennsylvania, New York. I believe there's some other states in there too, Maryland, Arizona. If you're looking for your stallions, you got to go here. Go to thoroughly-bred.com. Once again, that's thoroughly-bred.com. If you look in the bottom corner there, you can see the banner with all the information.
Well, Keith, I mentioned Confidence Game is in this Saturday's Lecomte Stakes, Road to the Kentucky Derby, a road that you know pretty well. You've been there before. You've won this race before with the same jockey, James Graham. That'll be up on Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. And I get to see you. I've seen you win some big races at Baltimore and at the Preakness and Breeders Cup. But I get to spend a little time with you at Del Mar in the summer. It's always fun to catch up. So I just wanted to tell you how much I enjoy running into you in the grandstand there. I think we share a passion for looking at these horses, betting on them. And you have done really well with horses like Confidence Game. That was a $25,000 Keeneland September purchase. What do you remember about buying this horse?
Well, I could go all kind of directions, but it's become kind of my niche to find these kind of horses that are basically, for some reason or other, cast-offs by the guys in Kentucky. Regardless, your question was, what did I see about them? I look at horses in Keeneland in a very different fashion, probably than most people. There's 4,000 horses sold at that venue. And to go out and try to pull each horse out of the stall and look at each one individually every morning before they go up for the sale is, one, very redundant, and two, very, very time consuming. I couldn't do it. I'd be worn out by the time the sale ended. So my style, and just to answer your question, it's very easy to scratch off a bad horse or one that doesn't fit the program. 9 out of 10, you don't even want to spend more than 30 seconds on them. It's the ones that are correct and balanced and athletic that catches your eye, and then you focus on if this is a viable prospect. So obviously Confidence Game had that look. He was very correct, very good mover, very balanced. You look at all these things in order to judge his athleticism. That's the number one step. And number two is to go to pedigree, and you try to get as much pedigree as possible. And in most cases, I don't get to access the higher end pedigrees, but in this horse's case, wow, he's out of Zenyatta's half sister. So for me to get my hands on this kind of blood has been a lucky blessing.
So when it comes to especially buying at that level, you purchase a horse for $25,000. I hear a lot of buyers talking about what kind of they're willing to forgive in a horse, whether it comes to sort of vet reports, physical, what have you. What are some of the things as a buyer that you're sort of willing to maybe not place as high a priority on that some other buyers might think, okay, this is a deal breaker for me? What things can you work through?
And I think it's something that maybe comes with experience, but there's a lot of conformational issues, offset knee, long in the pastern, small foot, sickle hop, long back. I mean, I could go on. And I may pick horses that have all of those things if they are balanced and they walk through it correctly, like let's say a horse is offsetting his knee. Well, if the way he travels through that knee does not put adverse pressure on the knee, then there's not going to be a problem when he's in full training. So I will take those kind of conformational defects if I like the way they travel through it. And again, that comes with experience. That's just that's from looking and grooming and riding horses for 30 years to figure out which ones can take the pounding.
I guess that makes sense. We're buying these horses to run, not to stand still. So that's what's important.
One of the most sickle-hocked horses I think I ever saw was Sunday Silence, and he did okay.
Really?
You're not going to brag about yourself, but I'm going to go ahead and just throw out some numbers here, if you don't mind, Keith. First graded stakes winner, I've struck a nerve, 2013 Risen Star Stakes, $82,000 2-year-old. Texas Red won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, $17,000 Keeneland September. Exaggerator won the Saratoga Special at 2, Santa Anita Derby Preakness Haskell at 3, $110,000. Decked Out American Oaks winner, $75,000, grade 1. Later sold for $900,000. My Boy Jack won the Southwest in Lexington, $20,000. Call Me Midnight, last year's winner of the Lecomte, $80,000 2-year-old. You've got quite a record of finding this kind of horse. One of these days you're going to have somebody call up and say, "Hey, I got a little more money to spend." Are you waiting for that kind of phone call?
Well, it would be interesting to see if I could apply. Well, it's got to work. I mean, I'm just using common, experienced horsemanship that I think I've maybe tweaked to work for me. A good horse is a good horse, basically, is what I do. It doesn't matter. I see high-priced individuals go by me all the time, and I'm thinking, I don't care who this horse is by or out of, he'll never make a racehorse, and there he goes for $1 million. So I only apply what I know is the qualifications of a good horse, and that will work whether it's by popular pedigree or champion. So yes, it'll happen, and it's happening now. I got a great new client, Ben Gase. Spent some decent money for him in the spring, and we'll see what happens. These were some high-priced horses, so I won't be able to brag on getting the bargains anymore.
Hey, people spend a lot of money and don't find the good ones in the expensive section too. So if you can find the good ones there, I think there's plenty to brag about.
I have a sneaky feeling the percentages will be about the same.
So looking at confidence game in the Lecomte, what makes you, for lack of a better word, confident about your horse going into this race? What makes him a horse that's sort of capable of being on the Kentucky Derby Trail?
Man, well, I can finally say that I've been through this kind of stuff before, so I can compare him not only to my own horses, but what I've seen it takes for a horse to be at that level. And he's got it. He's got soundness. He's got class. He's got speed. He's got pedigree. And according to his last race, he's got a fighting spirit. So, man, we're very excited. I also know you have to contain your feelings, especially this early in the game. But to be honest, this is about as talented of a horse that I've ever trained.
His first race came out of the gate slow, ran okay, showed a little something that day. Not atypical for a Keith Desormeaux first-time starter not to win. You don't seem to have him all cranked up, but he's consistently gotten better. The one race that looks a little bad on his past performance is the Iroquois, and he caught a sloppy track. What else happened that day?
Well, it might be partly my fault. I don't train that way, but I told James I wanted the horse out of the gates running and trying to clear going into the first turn. And when you start telling jockeys how to ride, that's your first major mistake. These guys, good riders, ride by feel. They make split seconds decisions in as the race unfolds. And if I'm in their head telling them how I want a race to be ridden, it's stupid. I already knew that, but I did give him directions there, and we were wide, and he had to really. The horse broke bad. He broke tardy. At that point, James, if I wasn't in his head, he probably would have just taken him back and let him come off the pace. But he broke slow, rushed up, got on the bit, was ranked the first half, and he didn't have anything to finish. So it was, it was an ugly race, but it was a learning experience. And as we've seen since then, he's so much better.
So this seems like it's always kind of a very delicate time for a horse on the Triple Crown Trail. You've been through this plenty of times with plenty of horses that have done well in the classics, but you don't want your horse peaking, doing his very best work right now, because you want him to run well in May and June, but also they have to show enough talent right now to justify staying on the trail and running there. How do you maintain that balance with a horse like Confidence Game, or really any horse that you have sort of pointed toward those sort of May, June classics?
Yeah. Interesting question. I honestly am not thinking that long term. I guess I am, but coming up to this race, I was like, man, this horse seems dead fit, and now I don't want to overdo it. And I've kind of backed off his last 2 or 3 works because, yes, I want him to build and progress off of each race. But to answer your question, I don't think I made that decision because I am thinking about the Louisiana Derby. I made that decision coming into the Lecomte. I just thought that his fitness was at almost a peak level, so why push him at this point? So to answer your question, I think it's an individual horse basis. If a horse is big and rangy and carries a lot of weight, then you might need to bear down on him a little harder, even though you're planning on going through a pre-Derby series. So it comes down to individual horse basis.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that in his last race he showed some fight, and that was, you almost understated it. He really fought that horse off down the stretch and put him away near the finish. That's just something that I guess you can't train a horse to do, right?
No, and I just went back on his replay and the replay of the Kentucky Jockey Club Juvenile that day. I don't know if I had the name right, but I can't understand. I can't grasp that his time, his half, his 3/4 split, his final time was over 3 seconds faster than the winner of the Juvenile Stake. His half was 47 and change. Instant Coffee's was 50. The 3/4 split was 12 for my horse and 15 for him. Of course, the final time was a little closer. I think it was only 2 seconds, minute and 4/5, I think, at the end. But that 3-second differential in splits is incredible to me. But yes, to setting fractions like that and then fighting off a good horse is one of the reasons we're excited about his future.
So obviously Louisiana is home for you, but there are a lot of different places where you can prep for the Kentucky Derby and get those trail starts in there. What does the fairgrounds offer for a trainer and for horses in terms of benefits for getting ready for those big races? What makes it important for you?
I think regardless if I was from Louisiana or not, I'd be at the fairgrounds. It's just if your number one goal is to prepare your horses for the huge meets at Keeneland and the Triple Crown and big racing in New York and beyond, the fairgrounds is the best place in the eastern half of the United States to prepare. The surface is awesome. The weather is what is the word? Complementary to a horse's development. I mean, it seems elementary, but if a horse is fighting to keep himself warm, how can he develop his body and strength and fitness and attitude for these huge races coming up? So great place to prepare. And the advantage or the the benefit of also being from here adds to the home feel. You don't think Brad Cox and Steve Asmussen and these $1 million horses would all be down at the fairgrounds. I mean, Rachel Alexandra, all of Steve's horses of the year prepared down here. So it's not something that I'm revealing today. It's just a great place to winter your horses.
And that track surface for a long time has been praised as, the best winter surface that you can train over, it seems like.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And I think the width of the track is like 90 feet, which is that's what it was 100 years ago. This is a very narrow track. If you go to Churchill and Santa Anita and Keeneland, whatever the major tracks, you're looking at another 30 to 50 feet width of training area. So, and we have 2,000 horses almost down here pounding on this thing daily, and it's resilient. I mean, you can work a horse second and third after the break and not be worried about soundness issues or surface issues.
Yeah. So this horse is owned by Don't Tell My Wife Stable.
Excuse me.
Has the wife?
I hate that name. Kirk knows it. I just hate it. I'm like, come on, man. We're not running 10 non-twos at Evangeline anymore. Can you give us a more respectable name? And he says, Keith, it's never changing. Just deal with it.
Well, you mentioned James Graham earlier. Is that you didn't want to tell him how to ride the horse. You did tell him how to ride the horse in the Iroquois, and you probably shouldn't have. What do you like about him? Because you guys have teamed up with some of your best horses.
Yeah, James is just a horseman. He's enthusiastic. He's loyal. He's a hard worker. He's appreciative. He's just the kind of character. He has the kind of character that I like to associate myself with. To have your jockey remain loyal on your horse wherever you go is a benefit as far as I'm concerned. I also like working with his agent, Frank. He's an old buddy from years down the line. So it makes a great team, and probably the loyalty and enthusiasm are the two things I like the most.
Well, Keith, we really appreciate it. We want to wish you good luck on Saturday in the Lecomte as you defend your title there. And thanks so much for taking a few minutes to join us on the Friday show this week.
Oh, thank you. First time here. Looks like it was a lot of fun. Hopefully I give you reasons to call me back.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. That'll do it for this week then. Thanks much.
All right.
Support award-winning independent horse industry journalism and become a Pollock Report Insider on Patreon. For as little as $5 a month, insiders get access to exclusive Q&As with Pollock Report staff, insight behind our editorial process, exclusive opinions and on-site analysis, Pollock Report merch, and more. This is not a paywall. The website you know and love will always be the same. But if you want more and you want to make our coverage even better, visit patreon.com/Pollock Report and become a Pollock Report Insider today.